Hey guys, here's my updated resin tutorial. I use resin on everything. So first of all, make sure you have lots of disposable gloves available. I have a broken measuring cup, a old tablespoon, and some popsicle sticks. These are large popsicle sticks. So yeah, make sure you have your hair tied up because you do not want to get resin in your hair, and have some paper towels handy. I also use paper towels to clean up as well as Lysol wipes, but you can use rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer, stuff like that to clean up. Now I use art resin only. It's non-toxic. You can actually eat off of this stuff once it's cured. It's safe for your kids to make stuff with it. You have to use equal parts. So if you use one drip of resin, you have to use one drip of hardener. If you use 1 teaspoon of resin, you have to use 1 teaspoon of hardener. It comes in a set of 2. I use a Culinary torch, which I got on Amazon. It looks kind of gluey now because I've been using it for a while, but I use it on a low setting to remove bubbles from the surface of anything once I have finished resining. That's very important because bubbles are very frustrating. So don't forget, the most important thing about using this kind of resin and a lot of other kinds of resins, you have to make sure your parts are equal. So even if you're a little bit off, you might mess up. So that could happen. Now what I do is once I'm finished with my first one, so I started with the white lid, which is hardener. I'm putting this away. I don't want to use this again. I don't want to accidentally just have 2 tablespoons of hardener because it's not going to cure and it's going to mess up a whole batch of rocks. So I put the lid right on it. I'm not going to measure that one out again. I'm actually going to put it right away and then get the black lidded bottle out, which is the actual resin. You need both of these magical liquids to mix together perfectly in order for your resin to cure properly. So I've got everything out. I'm putting this away. Do not want to use that again. Now I'm using the one with the black lid, which is resin. And I'm going to make sure I use equal parts. I have enough stuff here to resin that I'm just using a tablespoon each. And so of course that makes 2 tablespoons of resin altogether. So think about that before you measure stuff out. Get a set of measuring spoons specifically for resin. Get a measuring cup specifically for resin. I reuse the same ones all the time. Just make sure you clean them after you're done. And yeah, make sure you have gloves. I use a couple of pairs of gloves each time, only because I got them on sale when the gloves first became available, after this horrible cold thing happened and everything went off the shelves. Lysol included, Lysol wipes, which I use to clean up all of my stuff so easily. So I've been trying to use less of everything because it's harder to find. So I'm just trying to be careful. Anyway, I leave everything on a paper towel, let it sit there, and then I clean it up afterwards. I mix it really well. Watch out for floating bubbles because this bubbles up and you can see them. Make sure you wear a mask. You don't want to breathe those bubbles in. You don't want to get them in your eyeballs. So just beware of the floating bubbles that come out while you are stirring. You got to mix it up really, really good. Scrape the sides. Make sure everything is mixed equally. Because you don't want to leave like a chunk of just plain old resin sitting on the side there, and it could mess up your whole batch. So just be careful. I mix everything really good. 2 minutes. It does get bubbly. You do see a lot of bubbles in there, but that's what that Culinary torch is for. If you've seen my other resin tutorials, you've seen I used a straw to get rid of my bubbles, but you can actually end up like spitting on your surface. And then that water makes your resin mess up. So here's my Lysol wipes. I'm being very, very careful with these. But I use the same one to clean everything up. So I just wipe it all down and it's good to go for the next time I resin. Now, yeah, make sure you wear a mask. It is non-toxic, but you don't want to risk anything. You don't really know. So just be careful. And I let it sit for a minute. You don't have to let it sit for very long, but I do let it sit for a minute after I've vigorously been stirring it. And now I do have an art stone here. I have a stone that's been prior resined, but I want to resin it again because there was a flaw that I didn't like. So I literally scoop it on with my gloved hands and soap it like a bar of soap in the shower. And I know some people don't even know what bars of soap are because they've never used one. Not because they smell bad, but because they've grown up at a different time and bars of soap aren't as popular. I wasn't trying to be mean. But yeah, it works on my art stones that I create from the molds from Happy Dotting Company. It works on real stones like the one I'm doing now. I literally just soap it on. Don't use too much. If you use too much, you're going to end up with a big lip or some resin nipples, which are not fun. I know they sound fun, but they're not. I use any leftover resin. If I don't have any more rocks, I use leftover resin on my other rocks, and they end up having a really soft, smooth surface to work with in the future. So if you have any bumpy, lumpy, pitted rocks, use your leftovers for that. Look at that gorgeousness. But yeah, a little goes a long way. Don't soap it up too much with it. But if you do, oh, I've got orange paint on my finger. If you do soap it up too much and you have a lot of resin on the bottom, I'm going to show you what to do with that in a little bit. So yeah, don't get too close with your culinary torch once you've got your surface covered in resin. It's sitting on wax paper just to protect my desk so that I could do this under good lighting for you guys. But I got all of the bubbles out. You cover it in a container with a lid, a plastic container, and they will pop off of the bottom after 12 to 15 hours. And leave the lid on, don't touch them. Make sure you get all the bubbles out on a low setting with the culinary torch. If you do have to use a straw, be careful you're not spitting on your work. Okay. So yeah, you will need a plastic container with a lid. I have big ones that roll away under the bed, or actually now that I have an office, I sit them on my desk, but I keep them on the lid and I let them dry covered up so my cats can't touch them. I have a crack in this lid, so I make sure to place them carefully. And I reuse the same containers all the time. You can pick off all the resin that's hardened on there and peel it away. Sometimes that's kind of therapeutic, actually. If you've used resin, you know what I mean. But yeah, you let them sit, you cover them up, you make sure all the bubbles are out. I usually go over them a few times and I use like a flashlight on them so I can see them really well. Now I'm going to let them dry. It's really hard not to touch them. But you just have to make sure that where you're drying them isn't too humid or too cold, or it will take longer to seal. But now I want to show you how beautiful they look after being resined. There's that beautiful glossy glass-like finish. It's just gorgeous, or gorgeous. You guys have probably heard me say. But yeah, resin is so amazing, and a little goes a long way. You can coat a lot of stuff. You can make keychains. You can make pendants like phone grips, all the stuff you see on my channel. I am using resin and it is amazing, and I don't get any kind of discount from Art Resin, but I highly recommend it. It is expensive, but it's amazing. And like you just saw there, I put that stuff on everything. It leaves a beautiful surface. It looks like it's behind glass. It protects them. I also put them outside. But if you do end up finding that there's a giant lump or ridge or resin nipple, you can use a Dremel. You can sand that right off once it's dry, which I do all the time. I have like a shop vac set up here in the garage, and I literally just sand off the ridge once they're dry. You don't want to handle them when they're still sticky. This is completely dry. It's been a couple of days, I think. And yeah, I do all my sanding at once, and then I mix up a little bit of resin, or if I have some more rocks to resin, I use whatever's left over and I seal the bottoms again. I use a small amount of resin to seal the bottoms after I sign the bottoms. Oh, there's my little ladies over there. So once I have sealed the bottoms with my initial, that's what the backs look like. They're not perfect, but I'm really only concerned about the front being delicious and perfect. So if you do end up using too much resin, that's how you fix it. But you will learn that a little goes a long way, and you don't actually need to use a lot in order to get that glassy surface. And yeah, these are just a couple that are on their way out or already have gone out because I did record this a little while ago. But yeah, that's what it looks like if you don't use too much, and you will get used to it. So I hope this helps. I hope you enjoy it. I will leave the link for resin, torch, and everything all in the description. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you think of resin. Love you guys. Bye.